On the stage to decode emerging technologies driving the future. Please welcome.
Introduced. He's the Chief Strategy Officer of Jet Synthesis. Jet Synthesis is one of the sort of top gaming companies, both here and abroad. And it links very much into the metaverse. And that's why we asked Ashwin to come today to at least give us a bit of a sort of explanation of all these new terms that are coming in, Web 3.0, and so on and so forth. See, we, as DPOs, we look after entertainment, right? Not just linear television, now broadband, OTT, and we have to look into the future about not just the changing demographics, the way people are consuming entertainment, and very much in a country like India, where a huge percentage of the population is below 25, we have to look at how we need to evolve going forward. And one of the big aspects is looking at how 25-year-olds and below are actually consuming content, because it's very different to what it has been for the last 20 years. So we need to evolve, and we need to understand what that evolution is. So Girish, do you want to give us quickly a bit of an update in terms of how people are consuming content, and definitely on the gaming side for the youth?
Sure. Thanks so much, Ru. Just to give you a context, right, and I'll link what I'm going to say with that, right. So, Jet Synthesis essentially is gaming, esports, and music entertainment, and there's a very specific reason we do focus on these three things, because as a thesis, our emphasis is working with the younger generation, the Gen Z audiences, in their daily digital life. So where do they spend their time, right? And that's what we try to sort of focus on. And the construct, changes with generations, right? So when we start, talking, say, when you step back a second and start thinking about brands, right? Which are the brands, which are the platforms that most of us tend to engage with, right? So we talk about television, we talk about, some of the OTT platforms, we talk about social media platforms, great. The younger generation does a lot of the same things, but with very different brands, right? So it's not a Hotstar, right? It's gaming, right? It's not a Facebook, it's Instagram, right? So like that, as the generation changes, the younger generation still craves a lot of entertainment, far more interactive entertainment and participative entertainment than what all of us are used to sort of consuming, right? And that, I think, is a big difference from the way the younger generation looks at. So, for example, when we talk, and I've been a consultant in my past life, and we always used to love these numbers saying, oh, time spent, what are the kind of engagement metrics audiences are. So many hours a day spent watching TV, so many hours a day on social media platform. Sounds awesome, right? So we have a product called Real Cricket. 2 million users daily spend 65 minutes a day playing that game, right? And this is our product, right? Now you take that globally, right? And you look at BGMI or PUBG, you look at Fortnite. Those numbers are even crazier, and these are almost exclusively, almost 70% of that user base is under 30. And probably 50% is under 25. When you look at those audiences, right, the fundamental way that they consume things are changing, right? So as organizations, we need to start thinking towards in which direction is that engagement going, right? And what kind of interactions are the younger audiences craving? And we need to start planning for that, right? We have these conversations, and I was watching the presentation, earlier, and I may not be very popular in this room at the end of what I have to say, but here's the thing, right? There's technological change, but tech change combined with generational change is massive, right? So today we may be talking TV, OTT, right? And I agree with all the comments that were made in that presentation. But the younger generation doesn't care about that. So when we start combining that, right, it's not even TV or OTT. will even OTT survive? I think it's gone to that next level, and maybe that's 10 years away. When this generation becomes the paymasters, because that's the other big difference, right? Who's paying? So I think that's the other. So when you think about this, it's a longer process, but you need to start planning for today because this generation looks at things very, very differently.
So you're going to have two very unpopular people in this room. But just look at how our children consume content. It's all about experience. And I don't want to sound negative. Is what are we doing for the experience in television? Nothing. I am one of the cord cutters. I hate to say that. But it's the experience, right? Look at where we have come from. Who actually watches anything that's for 45 minutes long? When I have to join Accenture to set up TV, the first rule says don't keep anything more than 3 minutes long, because we lived in a YouTube generation and people are, baby boomers and this thing. But today everybody's on Reels. Everybody wants to look at consumption of content. And if you look at games today, Microsoft just picked up a gaming company, this Candy Crush. What's the cost? Some $85 billion.
True. So I think the point is that gaming, right, is sort of tends to act as an entryway into the metaverse, and I think Ashwin mentioned that when you were sort of talking about it, and I think more so for the younger generation because they're already used to gaming, number one, and number two, in a lot of ways, games are already mini metaverses, right?
It is.
What is a metaverse actually? While there are complicated definitions that globally are evolving, and interestingly, every time somebody asks me about the metaverse, I have something different to say, because one, I am learning more, and two, the metaverse itself is evolving, right? What people understand about it itself is evolving, and that will continue to happen. But what's interesting is if you step back and remove all the technology away from it, what is it? It is a way for users to have immersive experiences where they can interact not just with the platform but with everybody else, where it feels real. And I think that feels real part is an important part. But here's the big difference. What feels real to you and me is very different from what feels real to a younger, a 15-year-old. We may think, oh, what's the big deal? Oh, I'm sitting, this is my avatar. My avatar is going and having coffee with some other person's avatar. What's the big deal? When I first heard about it, I thought it's funny, right? What's the big deal? A 15-year-old wants the same level of interactions we do, but they're very happy meeting somebody in the virtual world and not meeting in the real world. So I think, and games already have offered this, right? So for India in particular, this is going to be a way to enter the metaverse for consumers and then expand from that.
So in the early 2000s, everybody started building their websites. All the commercial companies started developing websites. Those have evolved into e-commerce, into everything else. Now the big thing, particularly in the metaverse, is buying up property within a Fortnite or a Decentraland or wherever, so that they have prime real estate that they can do your virtual shopping or your virtual museums and so on and so forth. India is very well placed in terms of software development for that, to be able to really push that through as an industry. How do you see that evolving, especially here in India? Because it's happening a lot in the US and it's happening abroad, but you don't really hear about it here.
No, so I think there are, when you look at the metaverse from this angle, right, there are two parts to it. There is the user metaverse and there's the brand experiences around the metaverse, right? And while we tend to hear a lot about Sandbox and Decentraland, it's unfortunate, but some of the numbers that Sandbox has been showing is really dismal, because the point is, oh yeah, brands are there, but what's the user going to do, right? And again, it comes down from the fact that ultimately this is about entertainment in some form or the other. So if the users don't like it, if the users don't see value, right, they're not going to turn up, which is the reason why today the largest metaverses are probably Fortnite and Roblox, where the users are coming to have fun. But yes, oh great, brands are also there. So might as well explore what is there. So it's not, if you think about in a very, very simplistic term of the metaverse as a mall, right? You need to give the users a reason to come there, right? Just having great shops is not always enough, right? You need food, you need entertainment, you need so many other things to ensure footfalls. The same logic applies here. You need a platform model where there is a reason for the users to come, number one, right? So that today doesn't exist in India per se, where that user metaverse platform is not there. But there are a lot of people who are working towards creating those models, including us, and hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years, we will see a lot more such options for the users to engage in the metaverse. That's one angle. The second angle is brand experiences in the metaverse, right? Assuming you solve for where the experiences will come from, will sit in, the second problem still remains is that how do you create an experience for a brand? Now, the tech part of it is honestly not very complicated. India has got the skills to be able to create those metaverse experiences for brands, right? And it can be as best as you see anywhere in the world. I don't see that as the challenge. The problem is it is expensive, right, to do that. And that cannot work in India. So for India, and I've said this many times in many forums, is that metaverse for India is very different from metaverse for the world, both for users and for brands. You need to figure a way to democratize the entire process for brands so that if, I don't know, I'm just throwing a name out here, but a jeweler in Kerala, if he wants a metaverse experience created, he should be able to do it. It should not be the purview of only the Nikes and the Guccis of the world, right? Which requires a very fundamental change in the creation process of the metaverse, number one. It also requires a far more platformization approach, which means you need more toolkits. So for example, a simplest analogy I can give is GoDaddy, right? GoDaddy, a few years back, enabled everybody to create their own website, click of 5 buttons. We need that, right? We were trying to build that out with one of our sister companies. But in my view, that's the core. Anything in India ultimately needs to reach the masses, right? Otherwise, these technology terms will just remain that. Just a few guys testing it out. But scale can happen only when you can go deep, both into the user side as well as the brand side.
So just to emphasize, I've been working closely with platforms like Allspace, Mesh, Meta, and platform subscription is going to be the next way forward. Fortunately, there are companies that like the new internet or the new phones. There are companies going to be set up to get that excitement like Fortnite or Roblox. They're great gaming companies, but for doing serious business, would you invest your money in it? And technologies by Microsoft and Meta are looking at how businesses can operate. It's free. I have used 200,000 people on Allspace for free. To set it up, it's easy. The skills, just to let you know, all of the development on Accenture, most of it actually is happening in India, not actually anywhere else in the world. All we need to do is keep the quality of content, and like he said very clearly, is what is your content about? What is the value you're trying to bring? So right now, you talked about Decentraland. So you talked about Decentraland, you talked about Fortnite. Those places, people are buying land for more of an opportunity, but more marketing companies or marketing officers are building the brand there. It's like advertising. But things will change with augmented reality is going to come. And today, businesses are saying, I can create a virtual experience. Imagine, so I can't use names, but the way we operate in life is going to change. We are working with a company right now for a stadium in Australia, where going to your seat, you buy a ticket and go to your seat. We are working very closely with, I won't use names, by what you do for your maps, the company who will actually help you search for your seat using a platform, using your AR, and who's going to assist you to your seat is going to be one of your great Avengers taking you there. So it's the experience that is important. So we're working with the 3 parent companies to build that experience. Experiences are going to be built, but the content that you have are going to become assets that people want. You have built brands and names that people in India love. How are you looking at monetizing those brands and names? And how is it you building that experience for people is going to be the key factor as we go ahead?
So from the DPO perspective, considering we have DPOs here, so to cater for that younger market, right, because they're going to become our customers of the future, we want to retain that family relationship into the next generation. What are we going to have to do, right? One is connectivity, right? Is 5G really going to be able to give us the bandwidth as a young consumer to be able to play games, roam around the metaverse, view all types of content, but also what other services, like gaming services, everything else beyond your traditional just linear television?
So look at it. Look at it from this perspective, right? If you step back and say that, well, I wouldn't call it a typical day, but potential activities that you can do in a day, right? So you get up. So let's assume that as DPOs, right? You know, like you said, you're solving for connectivity. Now that connectivity gets solved through wired broadband or through 5G or through broadband over satellite. Doesn't matter as long as the connectivity problem is being solved for and offered. Now, in a situation like that, then you have the ability to offer multiple immersive experiences. And again, immersive experiences, like Ashwin said, doesn't mean VR headsets or AR headsets only, right? It's about how you're able to create that feeling that you're actually doing something in real the way you would have done it, right? So, for example, you wake up in the morning and you want to do yoga, right? So you get into one of the apps, and there's a yoga teacher who's potentially through your phone. There is an augmented reality thing that sits in front of you in your living room, and you've logged in as your avatar, and you're learning yoga, and you're doing those techniques both at home as along with that with the with the teacher in the virtual environment, right? You've got your friend, so you're not doing it alone. Your friend is also doing it with you. Their avatar is there, right? So you spend that's your morning, and then you decide to go to work, right? Work could be, or you're working from home, right? So there's a virtual meeting happening, right? That again becomes another option that you could offer, right? Then there are times when you want to watch content. There are times when you want to play games. All of that can happen in an immersive environment. Again, the important thing is assuming this is all one person, right? So one avatar, I've created an entire user journey for him through the day, right? So he's played his games, he's on social media, he's posting, his avatar is creating content, right? And posting it on Instagram, right? And his friend, who's his avatar, is watching it. There's a TV show happening. Both of you want to watch it, so there is a virtual room that is created on a couch. Both of you are sitting together and watching the way you would have watched it. Otherwise, obviously, it's the feel of it, right? You are still in your home, but you're able to expand on that experience one level more, right? And then suppose there's some purchasing you want to do. So there's AR try-ons, and so the point I'm trying to make is you can create a narrative and a journey for various use cases that might be required for a particular user, right? And those use cases can be inbuilt in through partnerships, right? Important is standardized and consistent journey for the user. If that can be controlled, then through multiple partnerships and experiences, you can actually create that journey for the user, right? And like I said, for the younger generation, this kind of experiences are very, very critical for them to be able to want to spend the time, because as long as they spend enough time with you doing all of these things, there is a reason for them to stay, for them to watch your TV channels, your other platforms, and everything else that gets offered, because they see the value in aligning with your offering and the platform at a holistic level. So I think that's how I would sort of think about it.
Slightly to add, but as operators, people are coming in for the content which you may not directly provide. But who are your customers? How do they get that service? If they have an issue, connectivity, how are they reaching out to you? What is that level of experience? Can you create in the metaverse your own hub where they can know about plans, they can know about the latest content? Maybe you have an avatar there who's a help desk who's answering them live questions. No one wants to hear a recorded message anymore. The experience that you could build for them is something that will keep them. People want that experience, and consumer experience, consumer support is what I think you could build the value driver using all what he said in terms of the experience side. For me, that would actually be a great value first, because I don't know what to watch. I do not know who to talk to, who can respond to my calls, and what's the best way forward. It's actually our relationships that we have one-on-one with the support at the ground level that actually is the experience for us. So how do I get a consistent experience, a consistent learning, and that's great value for me to come back for new things.
Okay, great. We've only got like 30 seconds left. Any questions from anyone?
Well, as the three wise men across news channels would say, avatars were not made by tech companies. Avatars were made by gods in the Dwapar and Treta Yug. But for me, Avatar was made by Rajesh Khanna because his film, Avatar, is the actual Avatar. I know it's a poor joke, but anyway.
So I just want to take away the thing. Today you're saying avatars and metaverse all cartoony characters. It's easy to build 3D cartoon characters now. It's easy. But everybody wants a real you. Look at the avatars being a digital identity of you. It's representing you in the virtual space. It's getting more and more real. It's your persona that is coming in. So that's why, when I say I own something, who owns? It's going to be you in that virtual space who owns it, who's interacting with somebody else. But I would just open your mind because I've gone through this whole transformation experience. When you have people with physical disabilities finding an avenue for being able to be free of the boundaries of physical space, for people to communicate across the world. And the metaverse can actually be boundaryless, even hierarchyless. Today I'll be talking to think of who your junior employees, but they even call you up and talk to you. But in the metaverse, people are expressing, it takes away hierarchies, it takes away geographical boundaries. I maybe feel, inferior, or because I'm an Indian versus a white skin, I could be green in the metaverse. I don't care. And that's where things open up. So I just think there's a huge potential, huge value in the metaverse. And it's getting in now, even small, is better than not doing anything at the moment.
Ashwin, you mentioned, and I think from a DPO perspective, you mentioned a very good thing for us. I think one of the big challenges we have as multi-system operators or DPOs, and you're probably right, is our, I won't say lack, but is our not so perfect customer service, right? It's always been a challenge for us. I like the idea of having a metaverse for providing that customer service to our consumers because it obviously keeps them in check with us, right? I mean, all of us want to hold on to our consumers, our customers. We don't want them to go somewhere else. We like them to see packages, etc. But then Girish made a very good point that there's also the challenge of democratization. When can smaller operators look to invest in this space where, the pricing comes down enough? I mean, do you see that happening in the show? Given your experience, do you see that short term? Do you see that in the next year?
I think next year, platforms like Mesh, which will integrate with Teams. Meta is creating this whole, they are trying to integrate things. Everybody is trying to create toolkits where, setting up your metaverse is going to be as easy as setting up a website. It's how much of investment you put into it. And I would say, Vince, my belief is I don't know how to reach out to a Star Plus channel. I reach out to my cable operator. For me, channel is a channel, but my operator is my person who I am in touch with. So my relationship, I'm passionate about the operator, not passionate about the channels. So the experience is hold on to those kind of people. What is it that I can give that others can't give? It's a value-added service. But to feel personalized is very important because that's where you either hold your customer or lose your customer. One bad experience, I've lost my customer, right? And what is in it for me? And I honestly have seen that I don't think that what Comcast or anybody else can give is going to be very different. Maybe we will piggyback on what the likes of Disney is doing and the whole acquisition, what they are doing. We will piggyback on what Hotstar is doing, what Netflix and Amazon is doing. The experience is consistent. The consumer says, why should I have a difference between what an OTT offers me and what a cable TV offers me, right? For me, I want content. And I think that's where we should look at that approach.
And Vince, to your point on when will everybody afford it? 3 months. Let me put a time to it.
Yeah, so it's how much you invest in it is what you want out of it. But it's never going to be as expensive as you see the numbers of people spending in the US. We know how to make things cheaper here. But give them world-class experience. The reason I think people like me would go to an OTT platform is only the value of experience and no laws or policies stopping us to watch what we want to watch.
Yes, thank you to Girish and thank you to Ashwin.